Welcome to the Success Sensei podcast for anyone interested in success, happiness, and balance. We'll teach you how to be a black belt at life. And now, your host, former professional fighter, multiple world champion, entrepreneur, and investor, Robert Devane.
Bowing in. This is Robert Devane, the Success Sensei, helping you to win at life one kick and punch at a time. Episode 306. Looking rich versus being rich.
It's the Success Sensei podcast main event.
Looking rich versus being rich. Sometimes when I do episodes on money or wealth or being rich, people take offense or they don't like it. And I guess money is still very much a taboo subject, so much so that a lot of people try to dull down the term money and wealth by simply calling it financial independence and or being financially secure. That's fine, absolutely, I understand. I use those terms sometimes myself. But at the end of the day, what we are talking about is money, riches and wealth, whether you like it or not. And it is still a taboo subject, a subject that friends can't discuss with each other, a discussion that family members don't like to have. And yet, it is so important to all our lives. You can pretend that it's not. I wouldn't be the Success Sensei if part of the success strategy didn't involve financial independence or financial security. In other words, you know, trying to attain some level of wealth or some level of riches. And what exactly does that mean? What is the definition of wealth and what is the definition of being rich? And that really comes down to you. Oh, I am going to give you one that we're going to have to use going forward, but absolutely it's down to you. If you have €0, $0, 0 sterling, £0 or whatever, 0 yen, you might think that 20 is a lot. You might think that €20 is a lot. And to you, the definition of riches is probably having €20 more than you actually need. So everyone's definition is completely different. And that definition changes depending on your age bracket, depending on, you know, the family that you were born into, depending on the country, your country of origin, your circumstances. A lot can define what your definition of rich is or what your definition of wealth. Now, the first thing I would say, we're going to discount billionaires because they're the exception to a lot of what we're talking about. We're going to mainly stick to millionaires, and because of inflation, multimillionaires, pentamillionaires, decamillionaires, they're the terms that are used for 5 million plus or 10 million or whatever it is, right? So years and years ago, aspiring to be a millionaire was the way to go. Absolutely. Anyone who was into self-development or into financial security, a million was going to have to be the target. So a millionaire, by the way, now looking up the stats, anyone whose net worth is $1 million, and that can include your assets. Traditionally, your net worth didn't include it was investable assets of $1 million. It didn't include your home, but I think with all the stats now, they're including homes, which you'd imagine it brings up the amount of people that are actually millionaires because there's so many homes and even modest, homes, modest 3-bedroom semi-detached homes that are worth in excess of 1 million. So you'd imagine there must be a lot of people on planet Earth that are worth 1 million. Well, the stats are saying that that's just 1% of the population. 1% of 8 billion are worth 1 million. So it's probably not as many people as you thought it was going to be. And this episode is going to affect you in one or two ways. It's either going to make you relax and not worry so much and realize that you're actually doing okay, or it might spur you on and make you want to aim for higher. Either one of those results is fine by me. It totally is down to whichever suits you in whichever area and what period of time you are in your life. But we're going to play a game first. Let's play a game of looking rich versus being rich. Now, a lot of the statistics that I've used, they come from a lot of different sources, but I was heavily influenced by the book, The Millionaire Next Door. If you haven't read it, absolutely check it out. Oh yeah, and just before I get into this as well, so we were saying about inflation, we were saying about millionaires and billionaires. So a long time ago, $1 million was a lot of money, not even that long ago, but you know what I mean. A couple of decades ago, $1 million was, a large sum of money. And now the majority of Americans believe it takes 2 million to be wealthy. 2 million plus. A lot of time when you're talking to people who aspire to be wealthy, they are talking in the range of 10 million now. That would have been fairly unheard of a few decades ago, that people, would aspire to such lofty amounts of wealth. But it's like 1 million, you can earn $1 million, or you can be worth $1 million. Your home can be worth $1 million. You can still have absolutely no money, or be struggling. Especially if it's not in an investable assets, as we said, it's in your home, or it's in anything else, or you could be earning large sums of money and still be struggling. So that's why I think the definition of rich for a lot of people has extended beyond being a millionaire. Now we want to play this game of looking rich versus being rich. So the first one is, which one is which? Which one is looking rich and which one is being rich? Buying things that decrease in value, or buying things that increase in value or provide positive cash flow? Which one is looking rich? Which one is being rich? Yes, of course you know the answer. You're going to know the answer to all of this. This is to remind you, to motivate you. I'm not here to make up your mind for you. That's up to you. As I said, everyone's in a totally different position. So see what you think. I'm not saying what's right, what's wrong. Well, I probably am saying to a large degree what is right. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. And my right isn't necessarily your right. So you know what I mean, right? The second one, looking rich versus being rich. Which is which? Working to earn money and to pay bills, are working for experience, as well as obviously money and to pay the bills. So being rich gives you a little bit more freedom to be able to do the things that you want to do. I know people who were rich and came from a rich background, that they were able to gain a lot of experience by working for free, and ultimately ended up in the career that they wanted to be in, because they could afford to work for not even a year, several years, without taking any wage. So they were that affluent, that they came from that affluent background, that they didn't have to earn money, and therefore they were able to offer their services free of charge while they gained experience in the area that they wanted to become involved in. And ultimately, that is exactly what happened. So their plan worked. Point number 3 was purchasing designer clothes or designer items like Gucci and Prada, not hating on Gucci and Prada, just examples, versus purchasing items that brands might not be recognizable, or the item could be tailor-made, or they could even be of a budget financial bracket. Which one is which? Now, there's varying degrees of wealth, there's varying degrees of rich people, and I'm sure people who have money also like purchasing designer items, but for the sake of this particular episode, all the stats show that the majority of self-made millionaires and multimillionaires rather spend less on, disposable items, on stuff that isn't going to produce them an income. They'd rather spend less on liabilities, so they might not necessarily purchase the designer item. So one is looking rich and the other one is being rich, which brings us on to number 4. Purchasing possessions are purchasing life experience. So that's another decider. That's another definition of one is looking rich and the other one is being rich. So being rich, the people tend to want to have the money for the life experiences as opposed to the possessions. Again, nothing against possessions, but you're going to have to draw your own line somewhere. Life experience being travel experience, could be the odd expensive dining experience, whatever it means to you, either way and interchangeable. Number 5, looking rich versus being rich. Wanting fame and wanting to be noticed versus wanting privacy. So generally, those who are rich, they're aware that the public and the media attention brings drawbacks. As they build their net worth, they want to avoid it as much as possible because it can make you a target. And those who want to look rich, obviously, will more hunger for fame and to be noticed, and they want the notoriety. So that is one to think about. Again, which level is correct for you? That's up to you to decide. Number 6, talking about money and complaining, obviously along the way, versus never talking about money. So those who are seeking to look rich might talk about money a bit more, and they won't be able to talk about money without complaining about money. Whereas the rich, and those who are really rich, will avoid the subject of money unless they're involved in some type of a financial position, a financial job. They're going to wealth. They'll still avoid talking about their own personal circumstances, and that's a giveaway for somebody who's rich versus somebody who just looks rich. Number 7 is spending more than they earn versus spending less than they earn. So as I said earlier, if you always have €20 more every week than you can possibly spend, and that's a great definition of being rich. Always having an abundance, always having more than you need or more than you could possibly spend ever. Despite any circumstance. That's a great definition of being rich. So it doesn't necessarily amount to a certain figure, and it's not dependent on what your earnings are. So it makes it a little bit more fair, that definition. But which do you think is looking rich and which do you think is being rich? Spending more than you earn or spending less than you earn? Number 8, looking to buy status objects or lead a status lifestyle versus avoiding branded consumer goods, especially if they aren't being paid to endorse those items or those brands are not sponsoring them. You know, that is the mindset of people who are genuinely rich. They feel that they're advertising unnecessarily and not getting paid to advertise, or they feel that they're endorsing something and they're not being paid to endorse, as opposed to people who wish to look rich. Number 9, living in the moment versus planning for generational wealth. It's great to live in the moment. It's also great to plan for generational wealth. Living in the moment can mean living hand to mouth. Again, regardless of the amount of money that you earn, you can be living hand to mouth, as opposed to planning for generational wealth and making the appropriate savings and investing to try to get you there. So that's the 9 different points of looking rich versus being rich. I'm sure you have your own views about it. I'm sure some that looking rich parts you'll like, and some being rich parts you won't like, and vice versa. And it's up to you to engineer the life that you imagine and the life that you actually want. And regardless of me trying to push you in one direction or another, it's up to you to make your own mind up and to live the best life that you can live for you and not for other people. But there is truth in some of those points, as opposed not getting caught up in looking rich and trying to impress others unnecessarily. Now, so does that mean you can't buy designer items? No. If you think something is quality and you like it, then you absolutely have a right to go after it and purchase it. You don't have to make any explanation. Just because that was on the list of things doesn't mean it was wrong to do. Again, it's not completely set in stone. Now, I did want to say that the typical multi-millionaire next door are not flashy consumers. Instead, they tend to be business owners who work hard, save hard, invest hard, and live a middle-class lifestyle. So keep that in mind, those who are trying to look rich as opposed to those who are actually being rich and are rich. 72.5% of the world's 62.5 million millionaires, that's as of 2021, 72.5% of the world's millionaires are self-made. So they've earned their riches through work, basically. And you'll be very surprised to hear that only 7.4% inherited their wealth. So 7.4% of the millionaires on planet Earth inherited their wealth. A lot of people think it was a hell of a lot higher. I suppose if you were pushed on that, if you hadn't heard that answer and you were pushed to answer that question in a pub quiz, I'd say you did. You probably would have said 50-50. I know I would have thought that in the past. but it's only 7.4% inherited their wealth. Now, the remaining 20.1%, they said basically both. So they inherited some and they built up personal earnings at the same time. But 72.5% of the world's millionaires, and there's 62.5 millionaires in the world as of 2021, they're saying that they've done it the hard way through hard work as opposed to inheritance. So how does that reflect the stats that we're talking about? Well, it means that when you're self-made, you might value the money a little bit more because you know how hard you had to work to get it. You also know, more than likely, despite what you might say, you also know deep down that you are lucky and you mightn't be able to do it again if you lost it all. You mightn't be able to do it again. Maybe it was the right time. Maybe you had the right mentorship. Maybe you had the right circumstances. Maybe you came up with the right idea. Everything fell into place. I know everybody likes to think it was their own genius that secured their win and secured their riches, but really I think deep down everybody knows it's not just that. It is a part of it. Your drive, your ambition, your intellect, it all adds up. It all plays a part. But it's the reason why autobiographies are extremely hard to try to follow the life and the success of somebody that you're reading about in a book, because it comes a point where you realize it's something that you can't emulate. There was some circumstances, again, time or situation or person came into their life, and you're not going to be able to copy that process. So I think everybody deep down knows that their success, what luck does play a part, timing plays a big part in it as well. And you might not necessarily be able to do it again if you had lost it all. So people that come from that type of a background where it's through business and it's through work and, as I said, self-made millionaires, they tend to be more frugal with their spending. They tend not to want to look rich as opposed to be rich. So keep that in mind. What's the price of looking rich? Well, looking rich can prevent you from ever being rich if you play it wrong. Yes, I've heard fake it till you make it. Yes, putting your best foot forward and dressing for success in certain situations, but not to the detriment of your financial future. So it's a balance, and it's something that we all have to plan for. We all have to think about. We all have to compromise, decide what's best for us, how much of looking rich and feeling good should we do, and how much concentrating on being rich and future generational wealth should we concentrate on. It's a hard one. I don't know what your truth is. I don't know what your answer is, but I absolutely would love to hear what it is. So message me anytime. Thank you for listening. I'm Robert Devane, the Success Sensei. Life is a fight you can enjoy and win. Bowing out.
This has been the Success Sensei, fighting the winning fight. So add us, subscribe, like, and comment. Keep those hands up and keep moving forward.